to infinity and beyond!
This is me. This is how I win.
Were you rushing or were you dragging? Answer!
You're a wizard, Harry.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you.
No. I am your father.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the film room. Zach Goins here with Johnny Sobchak for a very, very exciting episode. The Oscars are in the books. We have our reactions to that. You know what else is in the books? The Last of Us. Episode 9 just aired. Season 1 is wrapped up. A lot of thoughts about that finale. A lot of thoughts about the show as a whole from what we've gotten through this season. And of course, my biggest event of the week, Ted Lasso Season 3 is upon us. First episode is out there in the wild. We're going to break it all down, talk about it. Johnny, how are you? What an exciting time to be back on the podcast.
Yeah, it's like the new year kind of is a little bit of a slower season, I feel like, and now all of a sudden springtime's here and my allergies are acting up, of course. And the good side is that we have all these good movies coming out, shows premiering, and the award season just wrapped up after it seems like I feel like it flies by, but also goes on forever. So I'm looking forward to now that's kind of in the rear view and we just get to move on to all the cool stuff coming up. But yeah, Last of Us, really, that was my big show, like starting off the year. And then of course we have your big show with Ted Lasso.
Hey, it is our big show now that you finally watched it. Okay.
It's good. But I'm excited to dig into the first episode and also recap because we haven't really talked about The Last of Us in a while as well. And obviously, you were not a gamer on that original game, so I have no idea what you really thought of all the different twists and turns, but I'm excited to hear some of that as well.
Definitely. Well, without further ado, let's get down to business. First and foremost, make sure you are subscribed to our newsletter, The Rewind. You can find that on our social pages at Inside Film Room or on our website so that you can get everything sent directly to your inbox. Any reviews, giveaways, all that stuff will be coming straight to you. But here we go. What's been going on? It's been a couple weeks since our last podcast. Last time we chatted was about Ant-Man, I believe. So we've come a long way since then. For me, one huge big event outside of what I've been watching, was lucky enough to have the chance to head out to LA for the season 3 premiere of Ted Lasso. Got to go to the season 2 premiere a couple years ago, made my way back out there again for season 3, and it was a blast. Super cool experience. Got to see the whole cast was there. Got to, they showed the first 2 episodes in the theater at this big premiere and then had the fancy after party. So I was able to chat up with some of the people that I've interviewed with. If you haven't checked them out, go see them on YouTube, all of our Ted Lasso interviews. But super fun experience. And while I was in LA, I also got to go link up with Inside the Film Room's own Jake Lawler and Josh Martin. Shout out to those guys. We saw Creed 3 at the Chinese theater, which was a very, very cool experience on its own. They were building the Oscars red carpet, or I guess champagne carpet right outside. So I got to see that in progress and then go into this historic theater, the biggest IMAX theater in the world, and see a really freaking awesome movie in Creed 3. So that was a great experience, but I'll let that lead me into what I've been watching. Creed 3, of course. Johnny, did you see it yet? I know you were doing a binge of the first 2 movies.
My binge turned into more of a slow sip of the first movie. I watched that, which that movie, the original, I ended up having to break up over 2 different sittings, and then I have fallen off the wagon with trying to watch the second and third. So I am going to try to make it a priority to watch the second one and then hopefully catch the third while it's still in theaters. But yeah, I have heard good things about the third one.
Oh yeah, Michael B. Jordan, fantastic as always. Jonathan Majors, oh man, just what a force, both physically and metaphorically. And Michael B. Jordan was very impressive as a director in his debut there. So I'm very excited. I know he kind of like beat it to death with the anime talk on the tour and whatnot, but very present. He was talking about it for a reason. All of the influences and the fight scenes and the choreography, it was very, very impressive. So I was a big fan of Creed 3. Also, the only other movie that I saw was a very cool experience that I got through work. We were down at South by Southwest, um, down in Austin, Texas, which kicked off last weekend, and was doing like a work event and had one. I literally flew in on Friday, worked all day Saturday, and then flew out on Sunday. So Saturday night, like after work, I was like, "What's on the schedule? I got to do something while I'm here." And got a ticket to the only movie that was available to get tickets to. It was called "You Sing Loud, I Sing Louder." Which is happened to be starring Ewan McGregor and his daughter Clara McGregor. But I was like, oh, cool. If he's in it, like definitely worth seeing. And then it ended up that he was there, his daughter was there. They did like a Q&A and introduced the film and everything. So got to see Obi-Wan Kenobi in the flesh from afar. I wasn't brushing shoulders with him like I was the Ted Lasso cast, but still very cool. And the movie itself was very fun. Very fun, very funny, very heartbreaking as well. I don't know. It's still like looking for a distributor. I don't think it's been purchased, so maybe something will happen after the festival. But I had not heard of it. I don't know if you had prior to this.
No, no, I hadn't.
But it's I put in my letterbox. It's like Beautiful Boy meets
Yeah.
Nomadland meets Red Rocket, which is just like a crazy fusion of movies there. But it's Ewan McGregor is a dad whose daughter is like an addict, just overdosed, and he's doing like a road trip with her, driving her to rehab, but she doesn't know it. And so they're like driving through like New Mexico, Arizona, like the Southwest, which is where the Nomadland vibes come in. Like the cinematography is very picturesque, and it very much has that same like Nomadland feel. They stop in and like these little podunk towns and stuff. But also, as heavy as that all sounds, it's very funny as well. There's a lot of humor in that first half, which makes it, a lot lighter, and then they kind of bring the hammer down in the second half. But I really enjoyed it. I think it's one that I don't know how much traction it'll pick up, but I think it definitely should get some attention. At least this is me giving it the attention it deserves. So shout out to Ewan McGregor and Clara McGregor, and You Sing Loud, I Sing Louder. I'll have to keep you guys posted if it gets picked up and hits theaters or a streamer or anything like that. But that's my my big action on the movie side. Staying busy on the TV side as well. Obviously, The Last of Us, we're going to get into that. A little bit behind on Hello Tomorrow, but still keeping up with that on Apple, the Billy Crudup retro futuristic show. I'm still interested in it. Mandalorian season 3 kicked off, so I've only watched 2 so far, but I know the 3rd episode came out today, so got to catch up there. Finished Outer Banks season 3. What a just absolute roller coaster of, who knows what. It started off I know I've said it on the podcast before. Season 1 was like good, clean fun. Season 2 was like, this is absolutely wild. I know it's not good, but it's still very entertaining. And then season 3 started off very rough, where I was like, this is just like too dumb to make sense. And then it kind of channeled more of that season 2 energy in the second half. So got me back invested a little bit, but I still was very aware of how dumb it was.
Right.
Still catching up on You season 4. That second part dropped last week, I believe. So they split it up into 5 and 5 episodes. I'm watching that still. I'm into it. I liked the first part a good bit, so I think I've got 2 or 3 left here before I wrap up that season. Abbott Elementary, staying up with it as always. And then Ted Lasso. We're talking about episode 1 later, but I've seen episodes 1 through 4. I can't speak about anything beyond episode 1. There is a full review, holistic, no spoilers, but our full review on the website. Go check it out. Like I said, spoiler free, but kind of just gives thoughts on where this season is headed. If this is the end, all of our thoughts, all of my thoughts on what it is. And I gave what I've seen 1 through 4 a 4.5 out of 5. Because I'm feeling, I might be biased, but I'm also very much loving this season. I'm thinking it's really put together. From what I've seen, it's a very, good blend of season 1 and season 2. So we'll get into the specifics in a bit, Johnny, and tossing it over to you. What have you been watching, my friend?
I'll try to keep it short and sweet. On the TV side, like I said, we are going to be covering The Last of Us. So it's been a week in, week out. I'm almost glad it's over now in a way, because I feel like every week all I could think about was The Last of Us, and like I was just dying to get like it made me like wish through the weekends, which I don't like doing, to see the newest episode. But yeah, so that was been like really the main attraction. And then of course Mandalorian. I'm also watching season 3. I have seen the first 2 episodes, and we'll be watching the third one this week. Fun to see Grogu's back. Good old green little guy. So far so good over there, although I am still quite frustrated and annoyed that they just reunited them off screen right after the last season had them separate. I still think that's utterly
Johnny,
ridiculous. But
Johnny, watch Book of Boba Fett. Come on, man.
Hey, I'm big good on all that.
That's where it happens. They didn't reunite off screen. There were 2 episodes of Boba Fett that were essentially Mandalorian episodes, and that's where all that shit goes down.
And it's so funny because they don't even they do a recap of all these little different things, and it's like they didn't show anything from the Book of Boba Fett. I don't think. I'm trying to remember, but I don't remember them even showing like the 2 of them getting back together. You just kind of have to accept that they're just together now. But anyway, and so that's been the main things on the TV front. And as far as movies, I've been doing, like I mentioned, Creed. I did watch that. Kind of a short blurb about Creed. I know people like are obsessed with that movie. They love that movie. They really like the new one. I really liked Creed. I thought it was pretty great. However, I did not think it was a masterpiece or 5 out of 5 amazing.
Boo.
Like a lot of other people feel. I think, again, I'm a little bit biased because I think my least traveled genre in film quite possibly is like the sports film. And I say that as someone who grew up my entire life playing a bunch of different sports, watching a bunch of different sports, still to this day. And I don't know, there's just something about it, like no matter how well done it is, it's never above like a 4 out of 5 for me. Cause it's just, I don't know. It's like I always can tell where it's going. Like it never really has me like surprised, or like it's not really like tricking me or doing anything like totally brand new. And I thought Creed.
I would argue that the first Creed movie does. It's not. It's fine to spoil at this point. We're 8 years down the line, but like. I feel like in a Creed movie, like in a regular sports movie, he would win and have like his glorious moment and stuff. But like in this, he loses, but still gets the moral victory.
Zach. I guess I need to remind you of a little film called Rocky. You might know it. It's a Best Picture winner, and he loses at the end of that movie. He does get the girl though, which you may remember that happening in Creed. But that kind of goes into my point that I feel like it's as good as it is. I love the performances. I think the direction is really inspired by Ryan Coogler. It explains why he got Black Panther and has been such a success, over the last few years. And I am looking forward to watching the next 2, especially with Jonathan Majors in the third one and getting to see Michael B. Jordan direct. But yeah, I guess and that's maybe why I haven't ran to the theater and watched the second one, just because I had like not super drawn into it. But I'm glad I finally checked it off my list, and I did really like it. So that's not to be too negative there. But and then in the meantime, some other new movies. I saw Scream 6 last weekend, new release.
I still need to see that. I still want.
I know. Yeah, and I was gonna say I'm surprised you didn't see it yet, but you've been so busy, as you have already said. I think you will definitely like it. It is right up there with the one from last year, Scream 2022, as in AKA Scream 5. I like the cast, the returning members, as well as the new additions. I thought that it was cool to see it in a different setting, although I don't think they really utilized the New York City elements quite as much as they could have. And then but I think, yeah, it was a crowd pleaser, good, fun kind of time at the movies, being there in a packed audience, midnight, like it was just a good time. So I would recommend that as well. And then John Wick, did blow through those first three movies. Still feel the same about them. I really, really like the first two, and am not really high on the third one so much. I think it's just a little overdone, just like a little too much of a good thing. And fortunately, there's some good returns in the follow up to that, which I won't get into too much here. But yeah, so that's been the main thing. And then I will also shout out. This is kind of a weird one to shout out, I guess, but The Sixth Sense. This is obviously a classic at this point and very famous, particularly for the plot twist in that movie. But it was funny. I had no intentions of watching it. And then it was something that me and Reagan and her mom, we were just talking about something to watch, and they were looking for like a thriller or a mystery. And The Sixth Sense came up, and I had already, I don't know if I'd already seen it maybe when I was a kid, but I pretty much knew like a lot of the beats in the main, story. And then, of course, her mom had already seen it, but she had not only not seen it, but she had no idea about the plot twist. Like, she kind of knew that there was some sort of twist, but she
don't spoil it. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, no, I will not spoil. I will not spoil it. Well, I will
Okay.
say, Zach, I am also impressed because this is literally like I am your father, like type, like level
Well,
of.
I'm pretty sure I know is it just the line from that movie? Because I'm pretty sure I know that line that
That is
Haley Joel
not that is
Osment
not that is
says.
not a spoiler. That is not a
Okay.
spoiler. But it is very, very good. It's an amazing, amazing movie, and I'm very glad. I mean, you can see why it turned M. Night Shyamalan into a household name, and even through all the different trials and tribulations he's had professionally, he's still relevant and still making movies and making good movies again. So yeah, I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. If anyone listening hasn't seen it, or maybe you haven't revisited it in a few years, it is a great, great movie. So performances, writing, direction. Yeah, I really like that one. So and it was also timely because, like I said, it was well, I don't know if I mentioned this now, but me and her were talking about it. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Supporting Actress, Supporting Actor, Screenplay, Director. So he came out the gate swinging. M. Night sure did, and I'm glad that he's still, like I said, getting some at bats. Years later.
Man, after my busy month, I need to spend a weekend at the movie theater because I still haven't seen Knock at the Cabin. Speaking of M. Night, I
Yeah.
haven't seen that. I haven't seen Scream 6. Um, Still need to see well, I don't know if need is the right word, but Cocaine Bear. That came out while I was busy. 65. I really want it's supposed to be garbage, but it looks so good to me. I'm so into it. I'm like Adam Driver fighting dinosaurs. Sign me up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I need. And then I know it's just gonna get busier with uh Shazam. Who knows how good that's not supposed to be very good, but that's coming up, and John Wick, like you said. So I need to get caught up before I get too far behind. So
Yeah.
much
No,
to
you're
do.
slack. How many 2023 movies have you seen so far?
Let's see. I saw Megan. I've seen Creed 3, you or Ant-Man, You Sing Loud, I Sing Louder, and then I saw the Titanic re-release. So
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
four 2023 movies, five theater
Five at the
movies.
theater. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're 4-4 right now. So we're neck and neck. We'll see
I've just
how
been
long.
missing the big ones.
Yeah, you're probably gonna blow by me here pretty soon. But I mean, the schedule's picking up. Like I think we've talked about this maybe previously, but March in particular. We've already had Scream, we've already had Creed, we have Shazam this week, I believe, as of recording, and then next week is John Wick 4, and then Dungeons and Dragons, which actually had pretty good reactions and reviews coming out of South by Southwest. That comes out the last weekend
Yeah.
of March. So I'm looking forward to all those. I'm going to be seeing all those, I think.
When we were there Friday night, that was when they had their premiere, and there were people like all lined up and dressed up in gear,
That's
Dungeons and
fun.
Dragons attire and whatnot. And I don't know, the screening invite for Charlotte had it, and it's like a Saturday morning, and it's like get here an hour early in full costume for Dungeons and Dragons activities, and I'm like,
Oh,
absolutely not, but I
that's
will come
addressed
and
right
see
to
your
you, Zach.
movie. Yeah, no thanks. Um, Alrighty, alrighty. Oscars reactions. Johnny, talk to me. Talk to me. I know you've been our expert all season long. What's the
Oh man.
story?
Well, I'm feeling a little less expert after the many surprises that came out of this award show. I mean,
Hey,
to be
I
fair,
was right there with you on a lot of those.
yeah, I mean, to be fair, there were a lot of very close races, so it was kind of like a coin flip in some instances. But um, I think the biggest, I mean, story here is that Everything Ever All at Once won an astonishing like 7 Oscars, and we're not talking just Oscars like sound and costume design. Like we're talking like director, picture, actress, supporting actor, supporting actress, film editing. So I wasn't rooting for it necessarily in all those categories. I wouldn't say not even close, but I got to respect it, got to tip the hat. It was really truly like it's A24, so you knew it was going to get a big push, a big release, but it is still, this type of movie doing as well as it did. It's it's unprecedented really. So hats off to them. And then in some of the other ones that I was really looking at or excited about to see who was going to win, I would say my biggest disappointment would be Austin Butler losing
Yeah,
best actor.
agreed.
I really liked Elvis. I know people weren't crazy about it, but I was a big fan by and large because Austin Butler just was so electric and really had me buy into that story and like the way it was told.
Hmm.
And of course, I'm a big fan of like the choices he's been making as an actor, like the roles he's taking on. He's going to be in Dune, of course, this year. He's also going to be in Jeff Nichols' next film, The Bike Riders. So I was rooting for him. He's also a younger guy. They don't really give out those awards to the younger actors too often. But it was Brendan Fraser with the comeback story that ended up winning it. And the less I say about The Whale, but seeing Top Gun get an Oscar, we can call that an Oscar-winning movie now. And I would say it probably deserved it for sound. I don't know if it would have been my vote necessarily, but it was an incredible sound mix and design. And then Avatar, The Way of Water, also winning an Oscar for visual effects. That was cool to see them get up there, even though they did get their speech cut off short, which is a bummer. And then All Quiet on the Western Front. I know this movie was kind of divisive in some ways, which I'm not really sure why. I thought it was a really great war film and really dark, but also like beautiful in a lot of ways. And that actually kind of surprised and I would say overperformed slightly, winning cinematography, international feature, production design with an upset over Babylon. And it also won for score, which was also kind of an upset over Babylon. So Babylon really got a rough deal in this, which I was a big fan of that movie. Again, more divisive, but I think the Academy, very clearly steered away from that. And speaking of movies that, were overlooked or maybe didn't get any, due at the Oscars, I said Austin Butler didn't win for Elvis. Elvis could have won potentially 3, 4, even on its best day, 5 Oscars, and it won 0.
Mm.
Same with The Fablemans, which was a Best Picture nominee. Same with The Banshees of Inisherin, which was a Best Picture nominee. Um, it was very surprising that, I mean, Fablemans you kind of expected. Banshees, there was maybe 1 or 2 things it was contending in, but maybe wasn't likely. But Elvis, I mean, costume design, production design, actor, like we said, it was. I don't know. Sometimes I'm surprised at these movies that pick up all these nominations, and it seems like there's always at least 1 or 2 that just get blanked. And I don't know. It's like you can never really tell. But here it was extra surprising, I think. And I think that just goes to show again the power of Everything Everywhere, just really overperforming and really being loved by a lot of different, Academy members. So again, I'm not crazy about that. I think it is. I mean, we're talking about a better Oscar-winning group of wins, basically, than virtually any other movie, other than like those big 10 or 11 win sweeps, like Return of the King or like Ben-Hur or Titanic. Which that kind of performance will probably never happen again, just because of how the Academy's changing. But yeah, I mean, this is pretty much as good as it gets. So I'm already looking ahead, looking forward to next year. I don't know when exactly I'll have it, but I think I mentioned this maybe to you, Zach, and this is something I try to do. I always say I'm going to try to do it, and then a million other things come up, and then of course it doesn't happen. But I am going to try to make it a point to not later in the year, but earlier, maybe spring, early summer. I want to get out a early, way too early Oscar predictions piece for next year, because as good as this last year was, and as much as I like some of these movies I just talked about, this year has potential to absolutely blow this last year out of the water in some ways. So I'm really excited. And like I said, we've already been talking about some awesome movies that are coming out and that we're looking forward to. And none of these are even, going to be in the Oscar conversation necessarily. So we'll I'll be doing some research on that.
John Wick 4 for Best Picture.
Hey, what we really need to talk about is the Academy adding best stunts to that, because I know this is something people are always talking about on Twitter, but it needs to be said. These are like the people that are actually like risking like life and limb for movies and to make movies. So the fact that they're overlooked, SAG, Screen Actors Guild, they do have a stunt category for television and film, which I think is great. And
that's how you get Tom Cruise to show up at the Oscars. You give him a best stunt category.
Exactly.
Bet your ass he's going to be there. Otherwise, he's skipping.
Dead Reckoning Part 1 and John Wick Chapter 4, that would be a dead heat maybe in that category. But yeah, so overall a good year. I mean, it's always a good year for movies, I say. If you don't think it was, then I think you're not watching enough or looking hard enough. But I think this was I would say the best year overall, box office wise, blockbuster wise, and also smaller films since before the pandemic, 2019. Which was 2019 was a really great year overall. So we're getting closer to being somewhat normal. And I think this coming year, 2023, is going to be pretty much full on normal for the box office and for full releases and Oscars and awards and everything. So, really excited, but we'll always have Top Gun winning sound. I'll take that, and Avatar winning VFX. Tar. How could I forget, Zach? I still don't think have you seen Tar yet?
I still have not seen it. That's probably the reason why nobody voted for it.
It didn't get any wins, and it overperformed with nominations. I still can't understand, like I said, some of these things, the way they pan out. But again, Tar, it will live on in my memory, and in the 4K on my shelf. But yeah. Overall, I can't complain too much.
I need to catch that Bad Girl on Peacock. Check it out. But my 2 cents, I really liked Everything Ever All at Once. I haven't rewatched it since seeing it in theaters way back when. So I know I liked it. I never had any reason not to like it. I'm not as in tune to the conversations and the discourse year round as you are. So I know it seemed like some people just kind of got tired of the narrative around it and all of the campaigning and whatnot. But for me, as an outsider looking in, I was still happy to see that win. Really enjoyed that movie. Want to rewatch it now, especially. But I will say it's kind of, and also like the seeing everyone as they're giving their speeches as they win, from like the directors to the cast, all that.
Yeah.
It made it hard to not be like okay with it, because they all were so earnest, so gracious in their acceptance. So that was at least like, whether you liked it or not, like you at least could be like, okay, this seems like a good person who's getting this award.
Agreed.
I will say, though, as just a viewer, like this was a better Oscars. The viewership, I know the numbers were up. I think it was like 18 million. But I did turn away in the middle to watch what we're about to talk about next, The Last of Us finale. Poor timing to have that at the same time as the Oscars. And Pedro Pascal was in attendance at the Oscars. But as a viewer watching it, a sweep is exciting, but it's also kind of a bummer, because I'm like, okay, well, now Everything Everywhere All at Once, even if you want it to win, it's still like anticlimactic to have that continue to win. I was holding out hope for a minute that when All Quiet was picking up some steam, that I was like, okay, maybe is this a thing? Because I threw $5 on it right when those nominations came out, because the value was so high. It had like 11 nominations. But alas, it was just the Everything Everywhere sweep. But
yeah, I will say, to one of your points, I think that you were maybe alluding to, and this is maybe the thing I liked most about the Oscar night overall, is I thought that the actual telecast, the actual production of the show, was the best that it's been, again, since before the pandemic at least. But I thought it was actually extra impressive, just the way that they presented the categories, the footage they showed both behind the scenes and from the actual films, because they didn't, it wasn't just showing them clips for the acting categories, but it was actually showing behind the scenes for the visual effects and also how they did the sound and the score and the costume design. They had costumes on the stage. I thought that and also I noticed something that was really cool that I've never heard them do before, is they told essentially kind of like a fun fact about the winners of each category, like as they stood up and like were coming on stage. They kind of told a little blurb about how they got like into the business, or like how they've come like into the industry, like to where they are now. I know in the Daniels one for directing, I think they mentioned something about them starting as like music video directors, and also mentioned something about like where they went to college, like what they went to college for. So I thought like that in particular is really cool, because you can really like fit it to whoever is winning. Like, I don't think we'd be hearing where Spielberg went to college if he had won for best director. So I think that was just something I thought there was a lot more thought put into this show. And Kimmel, I'm not crazy about him, but I thought he did a decent job. The jokes, some of the jokes were better than others, but for sure.
The fact that they were able to add all of the awards back in, which they obviously got like a ton of heat for last time.
Yeah.
But also had like, it was still like just past 11 o'clock, something like that, when the show wrapped up. So it was just over 3 hours. Like they had a good pacing to it.
Agreed. Yeah. It wasn't too bad or too elongated or anything.
Well, just like we did during the Oscars, we're going to flip it over here and talk about The Last of Us, episode 9, season finale. Look for the light. That is the name of the season finale. Quick synopsis: a pregnant Anna places her trust in a lifelong friend. Later, Joel and Ellie near the end of their journey. Their journey for, this first season. We've still got a long ways to go, I've got a feeling. Johnny, what were your thoughts here? We got this cold open. No, just kidding. I don't know if it was a cold open, but an opening flashback, which introduced us to Anna, a character we had previously not met. I think it was pretty clear, at least to me, it was pretty clear off the bat, like, okay, this is a pregnant woman. I think we're getting Ellie's backstory. That wasn't the case. It was her mother as she's scrambling to escape from infected. Obviously, she was born after the outbreak, after the fall of civilization. And so we see Anna, the mother, go into this abandoned house, or I guess what was a safe house for her. And we later see Marlene and a group of survivors. And we find out the origin of Ellie's immunity, because her mother was bit and infected right as she was giving birth, and the umbilical cord was still attached. And so as soon as she realized she cut it, as soon as she realized that she was bit, she cut the cord. But somehow, some way, that it seems to be what was able to make Ellie immune from birth, essentially. But this is a very interesting and insightful scene, but also a heartbreaking scene, because literally the second she gives birth to her daughter, she is bit. She's made it this far, but now has to have Marlene kill her friend, kill her, and promise to watch over her daughter. So, Johnny, what are the thoughts here? How does this relate to? Is this in the game? Do you play as the pregnant mother, or is this like a backstory that the show has added?
No, this is not in the game, and it was a cold open, Zach, which they hadn't done in a while. So I thought that was a fun HBO podcast, which is really good. I do recommend it because it has a lot of insight from Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin, who were writing and running the show. They tell some backstory about how this was something that they, at one point they wanted to have in the original game, and then there was actually an option where they were considering having a animation studio do kind of like a animated short film, like telling this story, like in addition to the game. And then I guess that ended up falling through, and then there was never an opportunity for them to put it into a game. And so it was a story that Neil Druckmann told Craig that he had written and that he had as an idea. And Craig was like, oh, we absolutely have to do this. Like, we got to put it in, and we should put it in at the end, after we have like all the context of who Ellie is and her life and everything. And I think that was a really cool and wise decision, because I thought it was a really, and also there's the meta element of all this that if for anyone who doesn't know, Ashley Johnson is the actor who plays Ellie's mother in this show, who gives birth to her in the scene, plays Ellie in the video games in the original and in part 2. So I thought that was just so beautiful and brilliant in like so many different ways. And yes, it's a tense and suspenseful like opening, and kind of it takes you off guard because you're probably just expecting Joel and Ellie, and then all of a sudden, nope, we have this lady giving birth while fighting off an infected, mind you. I don't know if that makes it
like
easier or harder,
like
but
the easiest birth when you take away the fact that she's fighting for her life against a zombie, an undead zombie, an infected, but like that Ellie just kind of slipped right out, didn't even have time to think about pushing or anything. It just kind of happened.
All that pressure and stress all at once. It's pretty
One
intense.
way to do it.
Of course, yeah. Of course, she does end up killing the infected, but she is bitten first. And as you mentioned, she does cut the umbilical cord. I like how they emphasize kind of later on in this scene or sequence that, she basically lies to Marlene, or, maybe Marlene knows she's lying, but basically says that she cut it before she got bit, which we know is not the case. I guess if she was wrong, then, they have an infected infant that they need to kill, I guess. But it is it's dark, it's sad, but I like that we got some insight to not just Ellie's origin, I guess you can say, kind of a deeper level, even if she doesn't even realize it necessarily. But her mother, like, they really neat. And then the way that they kind of edited Ellie and Joel arriving in Salt Lake City, I thought was well done. But yeah, it's this episode overall, I guess I'll just say, is pretty much pitch perfect from what I would have expected them to adapt from the game. Once you get to Salt Lake City, the game only has maybe an hour or so left. This episode isn't quite an hour long, but a lot of it is there's more infected. You're going through a tunnel really slowly, creeping around, killing infected. Whereas here, you basically get all the meaty elements that you need, such as some different scenes that we'll talk about here in a second, but you get everything I think you need to set up the hospital and everything that happens there with that sequence. And then also the ending between Joel and Ellie, which is all, again, pretty much all verbatim, not only just written the same, but also basically shot the same and like edited the same as it is in the video game. Which, again, they kind of said this on the podcast, and this is, I think, the right way to think it. Why would you try to improve on perfection? Like, why would you try to mess with something? Craig Mazin said that this is correct. Like, the way they did it in the game is correct. Not just perfect, but like that is the only way to do it. So I think that they had really good decisions, adding in some new stuff, mixing in alongside all of the almost shot for shot, line for line stuff from the game.
Yeah, obviously I did not have that point of reference, but I agree that this was a very perfect, well cut ending to what will be this first season. I really enjoyed, we obviously get that opener we were just talking about, and then there's a ton of like in between that and then like the climax of Joel rescuing Ellie. Like, once the action kicks in, there's a lot of like tender moments between Joel and Ellie, showing how far they've come since the first episode of building this relationship, and just working together over the course of their journey. They obviously rely on each other. They have that moment where he's hearing about like her past and talking about his own past and trying to commit suicide, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And then she says the line of like, oh, I guess time makes it hurt less, or something like that. Time makes it better. And he said it wasn't time that healed me, obviously talking about her. And it's just like, we've come a long way, Johnny.
Yeah, I think that was really the thing that I appreciated the most is, and also they do a good job of kind of setting this up in the like the recap for the basically the recap is hitting on like all the major elements from the entire season leading up to this episode, which I thought was nicely done. But when you really think back to when they met and kind of how their relationship started out in episode 1, 2, and even into 3, like, and just really along the way, like they really have come so far. And I think that more than anything, this show, I mean, they've done so many things well, but you have to nail their relationship, like point blank. Everything else can be great, but if you don't get Joel and Ellie to go through that arc together and for them to both change and to develop this chemistry between one another, this like love and trust, like the entire show just falls flat. Like it does not work. Mm-hmm. So it's really up to the writing and the performances, you know, with the direction and everything to make that happen. And you know, it seems like Pedro and Bella, like they've just delivered. Like when it comes to the big moments where they have to have something, whether it's just a line delivery, a monologue, a look, like they've risen to the occasion. And I think that's just a big testament to them, like his talents and the decision to cast them. And I'm already looking forward to the all the awards that they should be getting nominated for coming back up like around this year. Yeah. But yeah, I totally agree with you there. I think that scene in particular, something I guess I should mention as the gamer in this conversation, that whole thing with him with the scar and shooting him, trying to shoot himself, and that conversation where he reveals that to her, and they really have, I mean, that's really the most emotional, like heart to heart moment that we've seen from them the entire show. Like none of that is in the game. That's invented. So I thought that was so well done. And that was one of the moments I think I teared up or cried like a couple times during this episode. Not just the usual, maybe once in all the other episodes. I think this movie, I mean, it might as well be a movie. This show, maybe more than any other, like I cried like during the game, like multiple times, I think. And during the show, it seemed like every week, like it was just kicking my ass. Which is really the best thing, I think, is when you're able to buy in, like have that effect. But this moment I thought was one of the ones that was most emotional from really, like I said, the entire season up to this point.
Yeah. I mean, it's a moment that doesn't work unless they've laid the groundwork over the course of the last 8 episodes. And I think it's a product of how far they have come, how far we have come, all of this emotional investment that we have been building up over the last 8 weeks to get to this point. And I think that's why it works so well. And obviously you've got the 2 fantastic performers that are delivering it and bringing it to life. I want to ask you, the giraffe, that was a Easter egg from like something that happens in the game, correct?
Yeah. And to what you just said, it is one of the most important, iconic scenes from the game. So it's people, I think all season were like, I saw people saying it over and over, and I myself, I will admit, was very worried because I was like, everyone was just saying they got to have the giraffes. You can't not have the giraffes. Like, the giraffes have to be in there.
Important as in like a message to come, or just like in that own individual moment of like their bond
more so in the moment, and also without spoiling anything because I've played part 2 for sure. It's the moment because it's so beautiful and it's so unexpected, because why would you expect to see a giraffe in the middle of Salt Lake City? And it's just a wonderful, beautiful moment to slow down and like have some peace like in the game for just a couple minutes. But then also like what it means for like their relationship. And I think the way they play it in the show is even better, because, and this isn't spoiling anything or to say this, but like in that moment, I think you can interpret it like in several different ways, I think, just by like the shots and like the performances, like in that scene with the giraffe, like what's going through their heads and like what it means and like maybe what's to come. And like Ellie, because the significance is this, I mean, this is not a surprise, but she's obviously, you know, Ellie is traumatized and going through a lot of turmoil internally, which is clear from the very first shot of the episode. And this is the moment where she does open up, and like you do get a glimpse of who she was like prior to the whole experience with David. And that like kind of lighthearted, like childlike wonder and all that stuff. So that is really the main like emotional like beat for me, I think. But there's even some more that I think you can extrapolate just from what Joel is, doing, how he looks and kind of everything else.
Yeah, I totally agree there. It's you got me right on it. It was very unexpected. That's but I totally understand the feeling of like calm in the middle of the storm, all that of like
Yeah, exactly.
this is just like a moment of peace, excitement. Like Ellie, we've seen so many times. Like Ellie had never even seen a car before. Like obviously she's never seen a giraffe. So just a cool moment to kind of for them
Yeah.
to experience together, which leads us into the finale, the capture by the Fireflies. They've made it unintentionally to the hospital, to the group that they've been searching for all this time. And
Mhm.
when Joel wakes up, we learn that Ellie has been taken into surgery. She's having brain surgery
Mhm.
because, as the Firefly doctors have come to understand it, that is where her immunity stems from. That
Mhm.
the what is the name of the
Cordyceps.
cordyceps? There we go. The cordyceps is like rooted in her brain or something like that. So essentially,
Yeah.
they're going in to take that out so that they can examine and like reproduce whatever, multiply, and then use that to make a cure essentially. And so we know that she was coming to like they were coming here to try and find a cure, Joel and Ellie, but
Mhm.
we did not know the stakes of like, okay, it's brain surgery. Like, is she even going to make it through that? We also were hoping that Ellie would be, consenting of whatever is going
Yeah.
he's going to
Right.
do instead of like knocked out with a flash grenade and then taken into surgery. So I think that's where Joel's beef comes from, not being aware of the stakes here, instead just like waking up and finding out this is happening. And that really snaps him. We know he's very protective, so he goes on a rampage through the hospital, destroying the Fireflies, rescuing her from surgery, killing this genius doctor. Like, that's probably a good person to keep around. I don't know. I've seen TikToks and tweets about it. Like, don't do it, Joel. But even me not knowing that what's to come, like, I can tell you that was a bad move. Um,
Right. Right.
but even culminating in killing Marlene in order to escape with Ellie, which leads us to the
Mhm.
finale, this moment where Joel tells her, like, oh, turns out there were a lot of other people like you. They're running tests on you. They don't need, or they're running tests on them. They don't need you anymore. We're going back to Wyoming to live with Tommy and forget about all this. Um, Ellie
Mhm.
kind of sees through that, calls him out, asks him point blank what the truth is. And he tells her that, yes, that was the truth. He lies straight to her face, and she says, okay. And that's where we end. So, obviously, a lot that I just mentioned. Feel free to go back, touch on anything. But, biggest question, did Joel do the right thing?
Oh boy. Yeah. I mean, people have been asking this and debating this for 10 years now. As someone who played the game in 2013 when it first came out. Um, yeah, and something to touch on that you mentioned that's really the central, I think, detail here is that neither party that was with Ellie in this situation asked her what she wanted to do or like gave her a choice or allowed her any agency in the situation. They just assumed, oh, well, this is what she would want, or this is what works best for us, like as a team or a partnership. It was nothing about, well, Ellie, what do you want to do? Like, do you actually want to go through with this, even if it means you dying, or do you want to leave and never come back? And if she said no to Marlene and the Fireflies, would they have let her leave, or would they have killed Joel, killed her, and taken her brain out, or taken what was in her brain? Or like likewise, if she was given the choice and she said, yes, I do want to do it, would Joel have just done the same thing and basically kidnapped Ellie, or done something, even more disturbing? Like there's so many different potential outcomes if you allow Ellie, the person in the middle of all this, to, decide for themselves. And so I think that's really the biggest thing. And so I don't think there's really like a right or wrong. Like if you of course understand where Joel is coming from, but how he goes about it is the where it gets ugly, really.
Oh yeah, quite ugly indeed. No, I think yeah, I don't know. It's so hard because you can see both sides. Joel's been through so much. He is literally living through the apocalypse. Like my guy can make a selfish, like who can blame him for making a selfish decision when he's finally gotten what's left of his life back on track? But at the same time, like see the bigger picture. I know you love Ellie. Like it's easy to say that when we're not the ones in the situation of like this is the one
Mhm.
person alive, literally one person in existence that we have a relationship with. So it's
Mhm.
much harder once you put it like that. But to think of
Well,
like this could be the answer to it could be, but also at the same time it might not be. You know, who
yeah,
knows? Who knows that
yeah.
this is going to work if they know exactly what they're doing, if this doctor knows how to do this surgery even. Like,
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of variables. And I like my question, I guess, for you, now that I'm really thinking about it, is I knew everything that was going to happen, like what was coming. I guess for you, like watching it, were you like how surprised were you? Like once they said, well, oh, we're taking, we have to go into her brain. What was your like reaction to that? What did you want to see happen? And then what was your reaction to like what Joel actually ended up like doing?
uh, I don't know, man. I don't know. It was so like at the time I felt not good about what was happening because obviously one, the killing spree, like two, the lasting effects of probably killing all these would-be allies and a doctor and having to like live with the lie. But I don't know. I wouldn't say I was like particularly surprised by it. We
Right.
know Joel's a protector. We know he's always gonna shoot first, ask questions later kind of vibe. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, I'm not surprised that you like, I guess you wouldn't be surprised that Joel would react that way, but it's the fact that he so like he shows absolutely no remorse or, he is
he
just
killed that doctor real quick.
yeah, like he just kills that doctor with like out hesitation. He kills everyone without hesitation, even if they're trying to surrender, if they are like no longer a threat to him. Like he just is like the Terminator going through and coldly killing everyone. And then once he gets to Ellie, he gets her out of there. And then it's really that last confrontation. There's two confrontations really at the very end, one on one. There's him and Marlene, and then there's him and Ellie. And, you know, I think Marlene she made a mistake trying to talk him down. I think was her biggest problem. She should have just tried to kill him and take Ellie, I guess, for herself. But yeah, it's really the biggest thing I think that sticks with me from this ending is the very very end, which is like again really one of the iconic scenes where Joel's really trying to kind of paper over the whole situation and he's lying his ass off and they're just about to get back to Tommy's and everything's going to be okay and perfect and they're going to have their life together. And then Ellie, does confront him and asks, like, hey, is this all true? Like, are you lying to me? And then makes him, swear. Um, and just the way that it goes back and forth. And then she says, okay. And it cuts to black. It's just, it gets me every time. And you can imagine back in 2013 playing that for the first time and having that be the ending and then at that time not having any clue whatsoever if there's ever going to be a sequel or how long you might have to wait. I mean the sequel didn't come out for 7 years. So it's just to see all this come to life and have other people experience it and see it is just I'm getting a lot of joy out of that, especially given how well the entire show and this finale in particular has been executed.
Well, let me ask you now that we are wrapped up with season one. Overall, we've talked about it week in and week out. So I think we know how each other feels about the show, that it's fantastic, that we loved it, couldn't have asked for more. Thoughts? Any final thoughts on the show? For me, I've watched five, let's see, 5 shows, 2023 shows so far. And this Shrinking was holding down the top spot, but now got bumped to second because of The Last of Us. So that's my top show for the year. I know Ted Lasso just kicked off. We've got Succession, we've got Barry, we've got a whole lot of stuff. Go back, listen to our draft episode. But a lot is still on the horizon, but this is a solid number 1 for me right now.
Oh yeah, I mean this is definitely. I mean this could very well be my number 1 when the year ends. But I think just in general, I mean I've been watching a lot of television over the last year or two, and again, as a big fan of the game, all the expectations, all the anticipation, I think this really delivered, even in ways that I couldn't have like expected or even guessed. And I think that that's really satisfying. And I love this story. I love these characters. I just finished. I played the entire game, part 1, between January and basically now. So like over the span of the season, and it's a great reminder of like how good it is, and I am just really, really happy with the show. And it's probably, I mean, it's up there for me just over the last year or two, with the likes of my favorite shows like Severance, and as a new show, House of the Dragon, of course. There's been a lot of great stuff, and I think this is definitely up there for me. So I'm very, very happy, very, very glad that it lived up to the hype, and for a lot of other people seems to have done the same. There's gonna be so many new Last of Us fans and people that are probably going to explore the games and are looking forward to the second season, which I'm glad we are. It sounds like they're pretty well into developing that and have a good idea about where that's going to go and how they're going to execute it. So I'm trusting them with that. I'm sure the budget will be upped. I'm sure the scope and scale will be upped. More infected, they already said. For the people that were complaining about that, which didn't bother me, but I am certainly not going to complain if we get more. So yeah, I think
they
this
also
is just
said
a win.
The second game will take place over multiple seasons.
Yes,
So
we know we had at least 2 more.
Yeah, it's not season 1, game 1, season 2, game 2. So
yeah,
that's exciting.
And it deserves it for sure. Like I said, I played part 2. It's bigger. It's more characters, more locations. And it's certainly a bold game as well, maybe even better. So it's going to be a while. Like probably I'm thinking like the distance between this season and the next may be similar to House of the Dragon, maybe 18 months at the earliest, maybe 2 years. But yeah, I
and
really
especially since Pedro's like the hottest thing in Hollywood right now, we gotta find time in that busy schedule. Yeah, exactly.
Get in the bag.
Well, let's shift gears here from your show to mine. Jace, just kidding. It's ours. It's ours. Ted Lasso season 3 premiered Tuesday night. Wednesday is the official release day. Hit us with that 9 p.m. Tuesday release. So I have seen this episode 3 times already. No surprise here, considering my fandom. 3rd and final season, ? They sure make it sound that way. However, there has not been an Apple trailer saying the final season of Ted Lasso. There hasn't been any like official confirmation, I think, until like Apple will try and squeeze any dollar out of them they can until the last minute, until everything is like officially signed and sealed. No, we're done. Then they're not going to confirm anything. I know, people have talked, there could be spinoffs, there could be whatnot. Jason has said that the story they wanted to tell is completed within this 3rd season. They always plan to do 3 seasons. I don't know if a certain dollar amount can change that. I personally am not like, I'll be sad that it's over, but tell your story, King, make it perfect and leave it there. I'm perfectly fine if they're happy telling the story that they have told and that's it. Like, don't force it for season 4. I don't want people to stick around just because. Yeah. But that's just my thoughts. Johnny, I don't know if you feel the same way after your 2-season binge to get caught up for episode 1 of season 3.
I think you're totally fucking wrong, Zach.
No, oh my goodness.
Just kidding. No, I agree about your point, at least about if this is the final one. I wish more shows would be shorter in the number of seasons, or that they would go out kind of like, as you say, on top. Um, I think that you tell what you need to, or what you feel like is you're compelled to. You don't need to manufacture motivation to tell a story, or to really scrape the bottom of the barrel. So I'm looking forward to the season. Just going to enjoy it for what it is and not have any real expectations necessarily one way or another.
We have to be careful what we wish for, though, because it was a rough week a couple weeks ago when the simultaneous Ted Lasso, Succession, and Barry out of nowhere, like all of those were confirmed to be ending. Like, yes, I want them to tell their story and end, but like, can you guys stagger it a little bit for me? You're hurting my heart.
Yeah, it is kind of, it's unusual. But again, I will take it. I will accept it. I am a big fan of all three of those shows. Ted Lasso is the one I've watched most recently. So it's kind of like just a quick, it's almost like I'm binging the entire series potentially, if this is really the last one. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And, first episode, we've watched it. And I liked it. I thought it was good. I thought that it's off on a strong foot. Some things that are definitely maybe unexpected, or that they're kind of setting the stage for to be keeping us guessing to the end as far as how it's going to play out. Some things are just more continuations of what we got in season 2, and seeing how that's evolved, whether it's relationships or a character that's kind of maybe switching loyalties and that sort of thing. But yeah, this is a good, just kind of like a table setter, I think, of an episode.
Oh yeah.
Before we get into the nitty gritty.
Definitely. I think last season they did the 2-episode premiere, and this time, obviously, like as big as Ted Lasso as, they're not doing that. But we got the 1 episode. It's called Smells Like Mean Spirit. The newly promoted AFC Richmond face mockery as pundits predict they'll finish dead last this season. Obviously, season 2 ended with them being promoted back into the Premier League. Now, there were a lot of loose ends that were not tied up at the end of season 2. We've got the team being promoted. We've got Roy and Keeley on the rocks at the end of last season. We've got Nate's betrayal going to work at West Ham for Rupert. We've got the will they, won't they of Sam and Rebecca. I'm trying to think what else. The Coach Beard just being Coach Beard. Like it was a lot of stuff going on at the end of season 2. And we kind of pick right back up here with season 3, that there's nothing. It's not like there was a big time jump, maybe a couple weeks. Because we get at the end of season 2, there is that time jump of like, I don't know what it was, like 6 weeks later, went after Roy's vacation, all that. But we're essentially at the start or the beginning of the next season. And the very start of this episode is, to me, like I watched this first episode before all of that stuff came out of Jason saying that it was the end. But like literally 2 seconds into this episode, it's the end, because we start with Ted's eyes. Season 1, we started with Rebecca's eyes, ended on Rebecca's eyes, full circle, her arc. Season 2, Nathan, the story's all about him and his betrayal, his turn to the dark side, and we end on his eyes. And then here we go, starting with Ted. That to me seals the deal that this is the end. And shortly thereafter, we hear why he looks the way he does, why he's disheveled and distant. He's spent the summer, or I don't know if it's the summer, I guess. He spent time with his son, Henry, visiting him during the off season. And that's really got him thinking about the why. Why is he still here? He came here to get space from Michelle, from his wife, as they're trying to figure out their marriage, see if they can make it work. We now know that they cannot make it work, that they're done. So what is he doing here still, away from his son, away from his family, coaching a sport he knows little to nothing about? He's learned a little bit, but not a ton. And he's really just doubting himself, trying to figure out if he truly wants to stay in Richmond. We get some wise words of wisdom from his son, saying that you're there to win it all, Dad. Like you don't quit. We hear that from Doc Sharon on the phone, that he's not a quitter as well. So he's trying to just figure all this stuff out. And to me, that's very much the, okay, if we're starting here and we're going on this journey, we're starting with Ted's eyes and this is how he's feeling. I think I know where we're headed here. I know this show is always, as Coach Beard said, it zigs when you think it's going to zag. So I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I don't know if that was your impression as well with this, the first look at the eyes here.
Yeah, I wasn't really thinking about that too much, or I didn't consider that until I saw someone else post about it and point it out. But it is cool to see that they're carrying over that motif. And you know, kind of, if you're paying attention or you know that, then you understand the emphasis that kind of means and where we might be headed. But I liked it starting with Ted. I liked it showing that, yes, they've gone through the off season. You know, his son's been visiting for the summer, and he's kind of having to adjust to the fact that he's going to be in the Premier League again. And now Nate has left him. The coaches have to kind of step up to the plate in ways that they maybe didn't have to before. And Ted, you know, more than anyone else, of course. And, you know, not only does he have all this professional stuff going on, but he does have those issues, you know, personally with, you know, struggling maybe with his mental health, and his wife having really like left him at this point, his son, you know, having to live across the world. And it's going to be very interesting, you know, to see how that balancing act can be carried out by Ted. You know, maybe you know, he'll succeed, maybe he won't. You know, I was talking about sports stuff earlier in the show, how it's always predictable, or I can always see it coming. I will say Ted Lasso has surprised me at points and twists and turns, and I think that that's part of maybe why I like it so much.
If you had to make a season 3 episode 1 prediction of what we're going to get at the end of the season. They're going to
win the Premier League.
Okay.
I think they're going to win the Premier League.
I do too, but again,
yeah.
Zig and Zag.
Yeah, it's maybe too optimistic, or maybe they're just trying to trick us into thinking that. Because, you know, it's like, do you want the cliche, oh, they win, they go out on top, or do you want that something, you know, subversive? I think I'd be happy either way, but, you know, winning's always nice, isn't it?
I think one thing, I don't know how in tune you are with this, having just binged rather than, you know, like kept up with the interviews, the gossip, the theories all throughout the seasons. But Jason Sudeikis, the creators, they're all big Star Wars fans. And so there's always been they've mentioned this, and there has always been like the overarching idea that this is also part of why people said it was going to be 3 seasons of like the parallels to the original trilogy of the first season being A New Hope. Like the Ted comes in, brings everybody together. They lose at the end, but get a moral victory, like sort of thing. And then season 2, everybody's split up. We've got more individual stories. It's The Empire Strikes Back, where everybody's at their lowest, at their darkest, separated, isolated, trying to figure out how to take down the Emperor. And then season 3 will be the return of the Jedi, you know, everybody coming back, taking down Darth Vader, taking down the Emperor. And so like parallels throughout, Nathan turning to the dark side, being the Darth Vader to go to the Emperor, aka Rupert. And we get a very clear, very
how about that window?
Obvious window that is literally the exact same design of the Emperor's throne room.
It's just the Death Star window. That's all it is.
It looks so funny on, like, because you see him from the outside as well, rather than just being like interior looking out. You see Rupert peek out the window, and it's like this big stadium with this stupid looking Star Wars window in it.
So funny.
But it was not subtle at all, but I loved that as like a very clear homage to something that people have been talking about and that they love. But let's pick back up with some of the characters here. Keely is kind of struggling at her new PR firm. She's so used to, you know, having Rebecca as a mentor, as a resource for her. And now she's kind of having to do it on her own, trying to figure out a way to be her own Rebecca to this staff. Nathan, still a dick working under Rupert. He's obsessed with himself on social media. He just wants to read all of his praise. And, you know, doesn't care what
Yeah.
he has to say or do to hurt others, to move himself further, whether it's talking shit about Ted in a press conference or,
Hmm.
obviously like not building relationships with his players, as he calls them, dom-doms. But nothing, Ted has the lasso way and Nathan is not doing anything according to that rule book. So, there's a lot going on with all the different groups. What are your thoughts on Nathan, Keeley, before we get into the rest with Richmond, the players, what's going on with them? Anything pressing that came to mind with what we see from those two?
Um, kind of opposite. So Nathan, I wasn't surprised by anything he said or did. It's pretty much more the same with him.
Mm-hmm.
He's just really kind of becoming, I do feel bad for him in some ways, but he's just so despicable, like in the
Yeah.
way he treats people and talks to people and everything. And
Just him going up the
I'm very curious to
escalator,
see how.
just him going up the
Yeah,
escalator and not even acknowledging the person who says good morning to him. Like
yeah,
so quickly he went from nothing to everything and has forgotten where he came from.
exactly. Yeah, like it's just it sucks like watching him, but I am very curious to see where that's all going or like what their end goal is for that character. So I'm excited for that. And then on the other side, I was surprised by Keeley. She always has everything together and like she's so capable and smart. And, I just figured that, oh, things would be booming and she'd be taking care of everything at her new firm and it would all be going like smoothly. But it seems, I don't know, the vibes were very weird and off. And she seems a little bit like in over her head. And, maybe it'll be something where she just figures out or decides, in addition to another plot point that maybe we'll discuss a little bit. Basically, I'm wondering if this is setting her up to like kind of leave that all behind and like maybe return to Richmond at the end of the season, or maybe not even just return to Richmond, but maybe just do something else that she's more like comfortable with or like happy about.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, she just seems very shook by how things are just so different in her current role.
Yeah. I mean, she I wouldn't say she's always had everything like put together, but she's always been able to like, find a way. She's scrappy. She can finesse, think on her feet, like do all of this to make sure that she's like one step ahead. And now she's very much she really hits home with the I'm so busy I have to schedule time in my calendar just to cry at my desk. Um Man, that hit me in the feels, and apparently a lot of other people as well, because I tweeted that line and it is getting lots of love. So we feel you, Keely, the girl boss working her life away. Um, but yeah, I mean Nathan's just at this point, oh, this makes me sick. But I'm really hoping Keely can figure things out because she's such a positive light, and I think she has the opportunity to find a way. Like she still has her own Rebecca, but she can be a Rebecca to these people, like a new Rebecca, I guess, because like obviously season one Rebecca was very cold still, but the way that Rebecca took Keely under her wing and molded her and whatnot, I think Keely has the opportunity to do that, or just to like grow and learn from her and kind of take what she's learned and put it into practice here. Um, Over at Richmond, though,
um
go ahead.
yeah, no, I agree. I think that, again, saying that this is a table setting episode, like maybe that could seem as like a bad thing, but I think it's just interesting to check in with like all these different characters. Like you said, last season they were kind of a little bit more split up, or there was a lot of different threads kind of going different directions, and now we're just kind of picking those threads up. And
Yeah.
again, I'm kind of hooked back into like, oh God, what the hell is going to happen with this character and this person, like this relationship.
Yeah, I'm curious. It's interesting because that's my one critique of this episode is that like just wait, episode 2 is literally a masterpiece. I don't want to spoil
Really?
anything at all. Episode 2 is like vintage, like everything you love about Ted Lasso.
Oh man.
So I kind of wish that they would have done the double premiere, but I also am excited to like stretch this thing out as long as possible.
Yeah.
But the one thing about this is that like the table setting, the throat clearing, welcoming you back to the show. I'm curious, like for me, that was like definitely something I noticed of like, okay, we gotta like what was happening with Roy? Okay, yeah, Roy was doing this, or like what was happening, like all of the like reacquaintances. But for
Yeah.
you, maybe it didn't hit as hard for you because you have just binged it all. Like you still
Right.
obviously pointed it out and such, but for me, I was like, okay, this one kind of like it's Ted Lasso, but it kind of like feels like it's got a lot of obligations rather than just like being its own, storytelling, its own episode.
Mhm.
So that was my critique. Again, that's the reason I watched 4 episodes, and that's the reason why it has the half star off. I gave it 4.5 out of 5, and it was literally just for like that element of the first episode. But yeah. So when we are picking back up with the Richmond squad, moving right along, they have been ranked dead last, 20th in the league by all of the pundits. Everyone that is predicting how the season will unfold. They think that West Ham will be great and that Richmond will be demoted once again. So not a long stay in the Premier League. The players are frustrated and, freaking out about the fact that Paddington Bear gave them no marmalade sandwiches. That line had me cracking up. But devastating turn of events. And so good old Coach Lasso does what he does best. He takes the team on a field trip the Lasso way and gets them out of their heads by taking them into the sewer. Not exactly by the rule book, by the coaching playbook here. And it's actually turns out to have a great message, no surprise there. Talking about how the sewer system was built and how all of these pipes, these drains all work together to, if one is clogged, then it's like letting it flow onto the next person to help them so that everything can make its way out and work successfully. It's all this about like relying on each other, working as a team, having each other's backs, all of this. As Jamie Tart says, it's just poope, let it go. Jamie Tart saying poope absolutely wrecked me. It's the only way I'm gonna uh refer to shit from now on. It's just poop it. Just poop it. Um but I really loved that scene. I thought it was fantastic of like that was the epitome of Ted as a person, being unconventional but giving you that wise words of wisdom. And then you got the Jamie zingers, you got the backstory about Henry watching it. You've got I'm blanking on his name right now, but the French player, I love the line about
The-
expensive wines. Well, that's actually a misconception because it's fine wines, and him talking
yeah.
about that. I really love that scene. And then what comes of it is obviously like the press finding out that Richmond is ranked dead last and they're in the sewer. And then Nate takes that and roasts Ted with it. But any thoughts on that sequence of events on the status of Richmond?
Yeah, I thought it was great to see the whole gang again. As you pointed out, the stuff with they're all reacting kind of to different changes within the club and kind of the pressure, and they're pretty much they're right back where they were. No one's really changed too much. It doesn't seem Jamie is funny. He's still got his little personality, but I still think Jamie, like, just as a kind of aside, like, what a great arc, like, for that character. I think that he's just been really
So good.
and like instrumental in a lot of like ways, like, that are kind of maybe more low key than some of the other characters. But anyhow, I thought one of the funnier jokes in the show was or lines or moments was when the Dutch player was talking about how likely they were to be relegated
Jan
again.
Moss.
Yeah, just talking about the statistics and everything. I thought that running joke with him just continues to be really funny. And then also, yeah, the whole thing with the sewer, like, I couldn't really tell where the hell that was going. And obviously that's part of the point, but I was just like, is this really going to work? Like, am I feeling all this? And it ended up making sense and like being funny and kind of clever in a way. So I thought that was good, and kind of the way they edited it and ran things back and forth between Nate's press conference and the sewer was pretty clever as well. And then of course the way Ted kind of ends up wrapping things up with his team and getting them to kind of see his point of view, and get them kind of over on his side. I thought was classic Ted, but could be kind of significant, kind of going forward. But yeah, I thought I really liked, and Roy, kind of mentioning him because again, he's back, and he's still a coach, but he's going to have to step up a little bit as far as his role within the club. And I thought that I don't know. I'm very curious to see what they do with that character this season, because what they did in season 1 was very clear cut, like beginning to end. Same with season 2. Here, I'm not really sure what's going to happen with him, but I'm excited. And again, he's his usual self. He's telling people to get fucked in the street and everything else. So I'm loving that.
No, I agree. Jamie, going back to Phil Dunster, to Jamie Tart, like that, the way that he plays that character is so fantastic. Of like, he's had such a great arc, like you said, coming from being so, he's still sort of an airhead, but he's like so earnest now versus being like the selfish, sensitive, like playboy, I guess. Now he's very sensitive in another way of being just like in tune, like emotional intelligence and being kind at this point, and being a leader within the team. And also it very much, there's 2 lines where when Jamie then repeats later in the locker room of it being, it's just poopy, let it flow. That, and when he talks to Danny and he says bingo El Ringo, 2 moments where he's like very much showing his influence from Ted, like how bought in he is, like that, quoting his own sayings, or quoting like the message that he was sharing, and then doing like a very like rhyming cliche saying that Ted would love, like one of his folksy type sayings. Like, this man has come a long way and is fully bought into Ted and Richmond in the Lasso way. But speaking of the Lasso way, after Nate's press conference, Ted gets the chance to retaliate if he chooses. Rebecca wants him to. She's upset with the way that Ted has been handling this, which, respect. Like, you've got your neck on the line for this coach going on 3 years now. Your ex-husband is threatening to, kick you guys out of the league by dominating once again, and you just despise him, and your coach is in the sewer. Like, but at this point, come on, Rebecca, Ted, trust him. Trust, as Keeley says, let Ted be Ted. And rather than roasting or retaliating, Ted praises Nate in his own press conference, talks about how great he was and how excited he is to see him lead at West Ham, and then ends up talking about, turning it into, okay, I was disappointed in Nate because I thought he could roast me better.
Yeah.
It gets the whole, like, I'm so dumb. How dumb are you? Gets the crowd on his side. Like, he proves once again that, like, kindness is the way to go, that your people will love you and look past any faults because of how you make them feel. And with Nathan, that's very poorly. And with Ted, that's like, you're the most important person in the world. So really building up that relationship with the press, with his team, with his owner, all of this stuff where Nathan falls short.
Right.
And I think that was just such a great embodiment of who he is and who this character is. And then we see that Rebecca gets on board with it. And then Nathan is further angered by it because the press, or not the press, social media is abuzz with how much they love Ted. Whereas everyone used to call him a wanker.
Right. Yeah, that is big. I didn't think about that. It is, Ted trying to, it's almost like he's kind of, he's playing into it. Like, it's like playing into a stereotype to get people to change how they think about you, I guess, in a way. I think that was pretty, again, clever and funny. And, I also really like, there was that cute text that Keeley sent Rebecca, where she was like, good job, like letting Ted be Ted instead of trying to get him to do something that he doesn't want to do or wouldn't do usually. I appreciated that, because it's like, well, Ted wouldn't like really do that or like give into that pressure. And also I don't think it's really still within Rebecca's as a character to like, even when as mad as she might be or as like as much pressure she might feel, like she wouldn't like force that on him, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I liked how they handled that as well. I thought that was pretty funny. I also appreciated the Twin Peaks shout out, so that was nice.
Yeah, I had not seen it, but I still appreciated it. Also a lot of pop culture shout outs with that, with the leaky diapers, Peaky Blinders line at the beginning. Um,
Yes, yeah.
just those silly little references are part of why I love this show so much. Um, but wrapping things up in this episode, we get a big moment between Roy and Keeley. Obviously, season 2 left them very up in the
Oof.
air as far as what their relationship status was. And we see them getting together to have the talk with Phoebe. Is this going to be a we're getting married? Is this a we're breaking up? Is this we're moving in together? What kind of talk are we having with Phoebe?
Yeah.
Turns out it is the least happy kind of talk. They're breaking up, making it
Mm.
official. And once again, the same way that Henry was delivering wisdom beyond his years to his father, Phoebe does the same here, asking why they're breaking
Yeah.
up and really making them both think about what it is that is causing them to break up. Because initially in this conversation, Roy says they're breaking up, Keeley says they're taking a break. So they're very clearly not on the same page in how they're at least in how they're presenting this to Phoebe. But they talk about being busy, and Phoebe's like, "Oh, well, you both were already busy." And they're like, "Well, okay, we're busier." Um,
Yeah.
but just a lot of it seems like she's able to see through that there's a lot of excuses being tossed around, that then later when she's in the car with Uncle Roy, she says that she thinks he's making a big mistake. um so just let Phoebe be your confidant, be your therapist, your relationship counselor, and you'd probably be able to stick together. But as of now, Roy and Keeley are split, Johnny.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I was like kind of shocked by that, I guess. And I don't know. I'm not crazy when shows do this, where especially shows, I mean, any story, it kind of kills me, but like just showing like a really cute, perfect, seemingly like kind of, and they're not even perfect. Like I shouldn't say that, but they seem so healthy and like good and like capable and
Mm-hmm.
like steady. And then I did kind of forget how like the second season ended and how it was a little bit of like a cliffhanger there. Um, but I guess I just assumed or thought that they would work it out, and obviously they currently don't seem to be. Um, yeah, again, this is another thing where just a little seed put in here at the beginning of the season, and we just have to see how it's going to grow. And fingers
We know
crossed,
Ted
obviously.
Lasso, if Ted Lasso loves anything, it's planting seeds and harvesting them later, because they'll come right back around to everything that's mentioned, every little Easter egg.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm
Um,
just optimistic, I guess, that they'll work it out and stay together. But I guess I still
yeah.
appreciate that they're like the story saying that, well, there's nothing wrong with them necessarily. It's just that they're busy and like they're apart a lot. And that is natural and normal and it happens. And that's why people, end up not staying together. And it's funny. I thought the great humor like in this like scene comes from the niece, like not like being like she kind of understands where they're coming from, but then she's also like questioning them and then like kind of like affirming them like in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was just fun as well, and like a good way to close it out on like a somewhat again hopeful note. Maybe they're going to think it over and maybe find a way to make it work.
Yeah, I'm still holding out hope for them as well. Like you said, they're very like they work so well together. They bring out the best in each other. They have a very healthy relationship, as we saw in season 2, of like the that Keeley was scared to say that she needs space from Roy, and then when he finally did hear that, he openly embraced it and gave her like everything she needed, and vice versa with how she supports him. Like I'm holding out hope that it's just not the right time. They'll find their way back to each other. As much as I love Jamie and his growth, I don't want to see like a return to Jamie by any means of Keeley. Um, Jamie's growth is his own thing, I think, and they've come to become just good friends, Keely and Jamie. So, and Keely
Right.
or and Jamie and Roy have been come to be much closer as well. So
Yeah,
I'm
that's
holding out
true.
hope for Keely and Roy. We'll see what happens here throughout the season. But the last final kicker here that really got you in the feels is at the end of the episode as Ted is FaceTiming Henry to close this little circle of starting with Henry, ending with Henry. Um,
Oh man, yeah.
just absolute gut punch, knife in the back, knife in the heart, wherever you want to get stabbed. Ted learns that Henry's on the phone. He's showing off his Infinity Gauntlet, pretending to be Thanos. And Ted asks him where he got it from, and that mommy's friend got it for him. Can't remember the name if there was a name, but
Jake, maybe? Am I
yes,
crazy?
Jake. I'm pretty sure that was it.
Yeah.
Um, so not
Yeah.
not a great ending for Ted. We know that he obviously has had his issues with his panic attacks and whatnot. But just a devastating, it's like we said earlier, it's very clear, like they know, like they're not trying to get back together. They've given each other space. They're ready to move on. Ted has had his flings with Sassy and whatnot, but still that doesn't make it any easier to fully know that your ex-wife is seeing someone else. And at this point, he doesn't know the extent of what it may or may not be.
Mhm.
But it's serious enough to be buying toys for his son while he's halfway around the world. So just another
Mhm.
little fuel to the fire for Ted's why and what he really wants to be doing with his life.
Yeah, I agreed on all fronts. Again, wasn't expecting that little drop bomb at the end, but it was I'm curious because I mean, where is that gonna go, or like how's that gonna culminate? I guess is my question. Like, because when the son left, I was kind of under the impression, well, that's them saying, okay, like this is the relationship, this is him and his son. They had their time together. He's accepting the fact, I guess, in some ways that his wife is really not going to be with him anymore, and maybe that's going to be it. Like that's the last we're going to see of the son and all that stuff. And then, of course, lo and behold, at the very end of the episode, the son comes back and FaceTimes, and it seems like that whole side of Ted's life that has been causing so many, is causing instability, I guess, more than anything for him, is going to continue to fester and can be hopefully it doesn't get too ugly. But yeah, I can't imagine he's going to react very well to this news. And I thought the way that Jason Sudeikis like played that moment where he's like, "Who's Jake?" and he's like, and just his in his eyes and kind of like his reaction, like the way he's like spoke, I just thought was well done. So, not a good situation for Ted at least.
Yeah, I'm excited. It looks like Henry's going to be a big part of this season. I know you had initially said you didn't watch the trailer. I don't know if that still is the case.
I have not. No.
There's at least one other scene. I won't say anything about it.
Okay.
To spoil any or to even hint at a spoiler for you. But there's a scene in the trailer where at least he will be in the flesh at least once more. So
Okay.
we'll see what happens. But just an absolute toss the grenade and run away to close out the episode. So now everybody's left hanging a whole week until next week, episode 2, which, like I said, episode 2, absolutely fantastic. I'm so excited to talk about it. I have also watched that one 3 times at this point. We'll probably watch it for a fourth before we pod about it so that I can make sure I'm up to date, but it's great. So I'm excited for this show to be back, for everything that's to come. And man, it's good to have Lasso back, even if it's the last season.
Yeah, totally agree. I'm looking forward to watching this live with you and checking in every week and experiencing it together. So yeah, I'm glad it's back, and I'm scared, I'm happy, I'm excited, but it's gonna be a fun. Well, we're getting a full 10 episodes, I presume,
12,
or
12.
oh, okay, yeah, because I forgot they do. I was taken off guard with that last season. I was like, oh, I think the
Well,
season's over, and then there's
yeah,
still two more.
the whole thing was that season 1 was 10 episodes. Season 2 they had planned for 10 episodes, and then Apple was like, hey, we want 12. And so that's why you got the Christmas episode and the beard episode. Because
Oh,
those were quote unquote extra episodes that could
what
sort of
the hell?
stand on their own, that they like
Wow,
added back in. And so now this season from the
and
get-go it was 12 episodes. So there will be
wow.
12, but they're all, cohesive storytelling rather than a side story or anything like that.
Okay, okay. Well, hey, I'm all about that. I loved the Christmas episode, and I was a big fan of the beard episode as well. So I'm cool with that.
Much to see, much to see. Well, there you have it. Another episode in the books. The Oscars, The Last of Us, Ted Lasso. Only one of those will be moving forward with us as we check in weekly on Ted Lasso. But thank you for tuning in this week, every week, whenever you tune in. We really appreciate the support.
Absolutely. It's good to be back. Lots of exciting stuff, of course, to talk about, not just on this episode, but going forward. So make sure you stay tuned. Thank you so much for supporting and watching, listening. Follow on Twitter, on Instagram, like us on Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube to stay up to date and keep up with all the episodes and other goodies we got over at Inside the Film Room. And those social media pages can be found at Inside Film Room.
And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube, wherever you can get a podcast. We are there. And come back next week where we will be talking about Shazam! Fury of the Gods. We'll see you then.